Will BTS's upcoming tour be their last one as a group? Here's what we know. The plan to replace BTS. A woman stalked Jungkook believing he's the love of her life. And BTS fans are being taken advantage of. Watch until the end because you need to hear this. BTS announced the dates and cities for their upcoming world tour, but fans suspect this will unfortunately be their last one. Here's why. BTS announced their upcoming world tour. A full-blown, multi-year tour that's supposed to run through 2026 and into 2027. It's the kind of news fans have been waiting on for years. But looking at the details, there's a lot to unpack. If you want to check the schedule, you can pause the video now. There will be over 80 shows, spread out over what looks like a full year, maybe more. That's not normal. Most artists don't even attempt something like this anymore, especially not with the kind of physically demanding performances BTS is known for. What's already making fans uneasy is the way the schedule seems to jump all over the map. There's no clean flow. Usually, a tour hits one region at a time, North America, then Europe, then Asia, etc. But this one looks like it's bouncing between continents, with no clear pattern. One leg might take them from the US to Asia, then suddenly to Europe, and then back again. It's hard to make sense of it, and people are starting to wonder who planned this, and whether anyone actually considered what it would be like to live through it. Some fans have tried to map it out based on what's known, and the general feeling is they'll be on the road for an entire year. Maybe there's a break in September, possibly in LA. No one's sure if that's for rest or album work. Either way, it's not much of a breather. One person said it straight up. They're worried the members might get sick, injured, homesick, or just tired of each other. And you know what? Fair. This schedule doesn't leave a lot of room to be human. It's not just the tour that looks exhausting, it's everything leading up to it. Before their enlistment, each member spent over a year focused on solo projects. That wasn't downtime. Then came 18 months of military service, which isn't exactly a vacation either. Now, almost immediately after being discharged, they were back in the studio working on a full group album. And from there, diving straight into a grueling world tour that will stretch into 2027. That's multiple years of non-stop pressure, without much space to reset or just breathe. It's not hard to imagine what comes next. Burnout feels inevitable. I honestly don't know how they're expected to pull this off without some kind of toll. And yeah, people are starting to wonder if this tour might be their last of this size. No one's saying it officially, but the speculation is there. Fans are reading between the lines. Why go this big unless there's a reason to make it count? Why stretch it this far unless there's a chance you won't be doing it again soon? There's this weird mix of feelings going around right now. On one hand, people are thrilled. They've missed BTS and this is a proper comeback. But on the other, there's this knot in the stomach. What's your opinion? BTS fans are being taken advantage of. When BTS announced 2 huge concerts in Busan, fans were immediately excited. But that didn't last long, because then something else started spreading online. Out of nowhere, hotel prices in Busan skyrocketed. Like, absurdly. People on Korean forums started sharing screenshots from booking sites, and honestly, I had to look twice. Rooms that would normally go for around $100 were now being listed at over $1,000 for a single night. And these weren't luxury rooms either. Some of them looked barely above average, just regular budget hotels. And it wasn't just one hotel doing this. Fans started comparing prices across different sites and neighborhoods, and it looked like everyone was in on it. Hotels all over the city had quietly bumped up their rates for that exact weekend by 10 times. Fans, both Korean and international, started speaking out. A lot of them said the same thing. They expected prices to go up a bit, sure. That happens when big events come to town. But this felt like exploitation. One fan explained how they'd already been saving money, and now the hotel part might ruin the whole trip. Another said they were seriously thinking about not going, even though seeing BTS live was something they'd dreamed about for years. I've already seen multiple people say they'll spend whatever it takes to see BTS, no matter what, especially since the group has been on a break for so long. Businesses know this, and they're taking advantage of fans. I get why people are angry. It really does feel like the hotel industry saw an opportunity and just went all in. Others tried to be more understanding, saying this isn't the first time prices have gone up around BTS shows, but even they admitted this time is different. Tens of thousands of people are expected to attend the shows in June. The tickets will sell out fast, no doubt about that. But if this hotel mess keeps going the way it is, there's a real chance a lot of fans will be left watching from home because they simply couldn't afford to. It's frustrating. BTS has a new logo, but is it bad like some people are saying? After BTS announced their comeback, weirdly enough, it's the logo that's stealing the spotlight. Let me explain. A few days ago, Gold membership armies started receiving physical letters, which included this new, unfamiliar symbol with no explanation. Then it popped up again on BTS's official comeback website. That's when people started connecting the dots. This has to be the official logo for the new era. And that's when the opinions started flying. A lot of Korean fans, especially the ones who've been around for years, weren't impressed. On forums like the Q, some called the logo plain, even lazy. One person said it looked like something that could have been slapped together in 5 minutes, and that it didn't carry the emotional punch they were expecting, especially for a comeback this meaningful. But not everyone hated it. Actually, a decent chunk of fans started seeing something else in the design. They argued that the simplicity might be intentional, like maybe it's a clean slate, a reset. Some even pulled up old logos and started comparing shapes, angles, trying to decode if this new one was referencing past eras. A few said it felt more mature, more grown up, like a reflection of where BTS is now, not where they used to be. I personally like the logo. I don't know why, but it looks hopeful to me, like a sunrise. And even though some fans don't like it yet, I'm sure it'll grow on them. Right now, it's just a symbol for BTS's comeback, so it doesn't carry much emotion yet, but it will. In the meantime, everyone's guessing. And maybe that's exactly what BTS want. The plan to replace BTS. Rolling Stone was accused of insulting BTS again. Here's what happened. A new Rolling Stone article opens by calling BTS's return one of the biggest events in music this year. Honestly, that's fair. But then the piece takes a turn. It says that no one has managed to take BTS's place while they were gone, and then flat out names 17 and Stray Kids as examples of groups that tried but didn't quite get there. That's where the mess began. To be clear, the article does say 17 and Stray Kids have been hugely successful, which no one is arguing. But then it follows with something like, they haven't replaced BTS. Fans were not having it. The point wasn't that BTS doesn't deserve recognition. They absolutely do. It's just that the article felt like it couldn't lift BTS up without dragging others down. And for what? Was it really necessary? People online quickly called it out. One fan said they're tired of the media constantly pushing these comparisons. They pointed out that artists like Stray Kids and 17 aren't trying to be the next BTS. They're building their own path, making their own music, and connecting with their fans, not chasing anyone else's legacy. In my opinion, BTS could have been praised without turning it into some weird ranking. So when an article says no one has replaced BTS, what exactly does that even mean? It doesn't have to be one group at the top and everyone else underneath. That seems to be what fans want the media to understand. You can praise BTS without making it a competition. Not everything has to be a hierarchy. There's space for more than one group to make history and break records. Also, there's not going to be a next BTS, because BTS isn't a spot to fill. What they did was one of a kind. Other groups aren't trying to replace them. They're creating their own legacy, and that's exactly how it should be. Woman stalks Jungkook, believing he's the love of her life, and gets arrested. A 30-year-old Brazilian woman was detained in South Korea after allegedly stalking BTS's Jungkook. However, it's not as simple as a fan crossing the line. According to her family, she's not well. And honestly, the more you read about it, the harder it is to see her as some calculated threat. Still, that doesn't mean what she did was okay, or that there shouldn't be consequences for people who violate BTS's privacy. According to her family, she stopped going to therapy, stopped taking her meds, and over time started to spiral. Eventually, she became convinced Jungkook was the love of her life. Not in a casual fan way, but in a way that completely took over her thinking. Her family didn't even know she had left the country. They found out through her social media, and as you can imagine, it hit them like a truck. Apparently, she asked her mother for some money, not mentioning anything about Korea, saved up what she had, and booked a flight. Just like that. Alone and with no plan. One relative told G1, the Brazilian news site that broke the story, that they didn't even celebrate Christmas or New Year's this past year. They couldn't. They were too worried, knowing she was wandering around a foreign country, completely off her medication. And now they've confirmed that she's already been detained by South Korean police 3 separate times and is being investigated for her behavior toward Jungkook. From the family's perspective, the only solution is getting her home. They've said that if she's deported back to Brazil, at least they'll be able to bring her to her mother's house, get her the medical help she needs. Right now, they're afraid of what might happen if she's left alone in this state any longer. And apparently, this isn't new. Back in 2021, they say she went through something similar. She was diagnosed by a psychiatrist with a serious condition, but just like now, she refused treatment. Since then, she's pulled away from nearly everyone in the family. These days, the only person she speaks to is her mother, and even she can't convince her to come home. Every time she tries, her daughter refuses. Now, legal experts are stepping in too. One expert mentioned the emotional toll the situation has taken on the woman's family, especially her mother, who's been overwhelmed by online backlash since the story went public. There was also a message for fans. Sending hate or threats won't fix anything. This isn't a clear-cut case of right and wrong. It's complicated and painful. And for the family watching all of this happen from afar, it's incredibly difficult. No one's asking people to excuse the behavior, just to recognize that this might be a mental health crisis more than anything else. In my opinion, it's painfully clear that something needs to be done about these repeated incidents, even if the solution isn't simple. When you look at how often Jungkook has been targeted in situations like this, it's hard not to feel concerned. It really does feel like it's only a matter of time before someone gets seriously hurt. But the truth is, I don't know what the right answer is. Should Jungkook have security with him at all times, even at home, losing any sense of privacy? Should he move somewhere else? And if he does, how long until that new address becomes public again? I'm not pretending to have a fix for this, but it's obvious something needs to change, because doing nothing clearly isn't working. BTS is being used without their permission. What happened on January 11th left a lot of BTS fans confused, angry, and tired. A promotional area with visuals of the group ended up being taken over by a group of protesters who had absolutely nothing to do with BTS or their fandom, and they turned the whole thing into a political stunt. Videos and photos started flooding social media, showing people plastering the area with massive political signs and banners. The BTS imagery was still there. You could see it in the background, but now surrounded by messages calling for a special council investigation into what they were claiming is a political coup. Yeah, that word alone had people doing a double take. Still, that wasn't even the worst part. While this was going on, they were blasting Dynamite through speakers, a BTS song, and from what fans could tell, they definitely didn't have permission to do that. If you hijack a BTS space and play a BTS song, you know it's going to go viral. It was a smart move if the goal was to get attention, but it crossed a line. A lot of fans said it felt like the group was being used. They were attaching their political message to one of the biggest names in the world, knowing full well how massive and international BTS's reach is. They also dragged in a whole separate topic: South Korea's anti-discrimination bill. That bill has been debated for over a decade. It was introduced back in 2007, and it's about banning discrimination based on things like gender, age, race, disability, and sexual orientation. It's a hot-button issue politically, and honestly, it's complicated. But again, this protest didn't seem like a serious discussion. It felt like they were pulling in whatever controversial topics they could to amplify their message. And fans were not having it. This is unacceptable. People immediately started tagging HYBE, demanding that the company respond. Some asked other fans to report the protest through HYBE's official channels. The general feeling was, if you're going to use BTS's name, music, and image to push your own agenda, especially without their consent, then expect backlash. There's also the timing. That's what made this whole thing feel even more suspicious. BTS has an upcoming music release. So the idea that this group just happened to show up at a BTS-themed location and stage this political protest right now? A lot of people aren't buying that. They did it on purpose. At the time of writing this, neither HYBE nor any South Korean officials have made a public statement about what happened, which is frustrating. It's hard to say what happens next. Maybe HYBE stays quiet. Maybe they say something once legal steps are taken. Maybe nothing at all comes from it. We'll see. Is HYBE intentionally shutting fans out of BTS's concerts? Here's what we know. According to reports, HYBE has quietly introduced a new idea for 2026 that is now shaping up to be one of the biggest talking points among fans. CEO Lee described a new experience model based on scarcity. So what does that mean? BTS is returning with a new album and world tour. The ticketing setup reflects HYBE's scarcity focus. Members of BTS's official fan club, ARMY, get first access to tickets. Pre-sales for 36 shows start January 22nd, followed by 2 Los Angeles dates on January 23rd. Only on January 24th do tickets open to the general public via livenation.com. You can see the logic. Give dedicated fans first dibs, then open the rest. But when you think about how many armies exist, millions around the world, that logic gets stretched thin really fast. Most of these fans don't live near a concert city. A huge number won't realistically be able to travel for a show. So even before tickets go on sale, there's an enormous group of people already locked out. And once pre-sales start, it usually plays out the same way. The site crashes, shows sell out in seconds, and then resale prices balloon, often into the hundreds or even thousands of dollars. I've heard from fans who say they spent hours trying to get a single ticket, only to see it disappear in a blink. That's what happens when supply is far smaller than demand. But the unease here is that scarcity feels built into the strategy, not just an accidental byproduct of popularity. When HYBE talks about scarcity adding value, they're thinking business. Rare experiences can justify higher spending and build buzz. From a spreadsheet perspective, that's easy to understand. But from a fan's point of view, especially one who has waited years for BTS to return, it creates a barrier. Not just limited access, but intentionally limited access. And that's where the questions start piling up. Is that fair? Or is it a choice designed to boost profit? Fans aren't shy about their opinions. A number of them have said it feels greedy, that fans who live far from major tour stops, who don't have money for travel or high resale tickets, are effectively shut out. These are people who stuck with BTS through years of silence while the members completed military service. Missing out on seeing them live now feels like a real loss. I can see why they're frustrated. For many, it's about losing a chance they've been holding on to for years. Fans talk about saving money, planning routes, dreaming about their first concert experience, and then watching those opportunities vanish in minutes. At the same time, HYBE is operating in a different pressure cooker. While BTS was inactive, the company didn't just sit still. It expanded into new markets, invested in other artists, and built platforms like Weverse to connect fans and creators. The aim was to reduce the company's dependence on a single act. So now, as BTS returns, HYBE is under pressure to show that those investments were worthwhile. From that angle, limiting supply while keeping demand high might look like a calculated move. But business strategy and fan experience don't always line up neatly. I've read threads where fans speculate on how fast tickets will disappear, how many will be left out, and how much money scalpers will charge next. For many, it feels like being on the outside of something they've loved for years. There isn't a perfect solution here. A tour with 79 shows across 5 continents is, by most measures, a huge undertaking. But when you match that against a global fan base of millions, it still falls short of meeting demand. Unless HYBE finds ways to broaden access through live streams, fan events in more cities, or other creative options, a significant portion of ARMY will be watching from home instead of standing in a crowd.